There's a lot of names I want to just throw at you and see if I could get. I hate to say a quick response, but just your first impression of them and what made them great. And so we're gonna do this thing we call
Battle of the Best.
Okay.
Oh, this is gonna be a good
You're
one.
rich, you're famous, and you're probably pretty good at what you do.
I'm gonna show you how great I am.
But we want to know who you would pick between the greatest matchups of all time. It's the Battle of the Best on Sway in the morning.
All right, Say Adams is here, man. Say Adams is here, and we're talking about National Mural Day, which is Tuesday, May the 7th. Say has partnered up with Pabst Blue Ribbon and launching this National Mural Day. He remixed their famous logo, and you'll see it appearing on 150 million cans.
It's so different from the original, right,
yeah,
Sway?
Yeah,
It's crazy.
it makes you want to drink the beer. All right, here we go.
All right, you're going to pick out 2 names at a time. Read them out loud and let us know who would be your best pick. Okay, that's
And they're
one.
different kind of artists.
Yeah.
You know, some are considered, but we get rid of labels. We won't even say the labels.
Okay.
Go ahead. Who's
First
the first one? And I want to know what makes them great.
First one, read it out loud.
The first one is The Wiz.
What makes Is the Wiz great?
Well, for me, I met Iz in 1974 in Jamaica, Queens, and he was already a king of all ALL, all lines in New York City.
That means train lines.
Train,
Yeah.
All city, right. And that means he had his artwork on every single train, every single line, all over the city.
You got to explain the expression all city. So because me and King Tech named our label All City Records, and people don't understand where it came from.
Well, back in the early days in New York City in the 70s, going all city meant that if you were in the Bronx, if you were in Queens, if you were in Brooklyn, people, Manhattan, people would see your name, one way or another going to or from wherever you were going. You were just everywhere. And that's why they called it All City.
What's the second name you picked?
Dondi.
Yes.
Dondi White. Dondi White is arguably the best style master in the history of graffiti. He is the guy that people look to for letter forms, shapes, color. He did some of the best top to bottom whole cars ever in New York City in the early 80s. And he is a true pioneer, and sadly, both of them are no longer here, but their work lives on through, things that you can see on the internet and photographs and stories. Lots and lots of stories.
I won't even ask you who you think the best is. I just like these stories. Yeah. Well, can you tell me, if you had to pick one, whose art would you want to live with?
I would say Lee Quinones.
Lee Quinones.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
OQ's cousin?
Right.
Lee is actually in the bag. Lee's name is in the bag.
Really?
Well,
let's see who you pick. Go ahead, pick 2 names.
Oh, so you didn't pick one out of those 2?
Out of those 2, who would you pick?
Dondi.
Dondi? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do 2 more. Let's do 2 more.
Do they get arrested?
You see B Street Tracy G.
Okay.
First one?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Shepard. Wow.
Yes.
Shepard Fairey. It's really great that Shepard's name is in here because Shepard wasn't a graffiti writer, but to me, he is Keith Haring reincarnated.
Wow. Okay.
Because he took the lessons of everybody that came before him, Andy Warhol included, and just really pushed it to places that we did not know it could go. And the thing that I love about Shepard that reminds me of Keith Haring is that he is always nice when you see him.
Yes.
And he is one of the most successful artists, in America right now.
I met him at the DNC convention, I feel like in Colorado.
Well, he did the Obama poster.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what year it was, and just regular dude you could walk up on.
Had to be around 07, 08 probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Little switcheroos. Go.
Okay, what's that one? What that one say?
This is Blade.
Yes.
Blade is another one of these icons of graffiti, and I'm somebody that doesn't like to throw the word legend around because I think that young people use it way too often and certainly out of context. But Blade is what you call a graffiti legend.
Okay.
He is one of these guys that did a lot of top to bottom whole cars, end to end, full color. He did characters, he did bubble letters, and he was the king of the 2 and 5 lines in the 80s when I was coming up. And again, another really nice guy. And I have to mention that because so often people get so full of themselves because, they were these rock stars, if you will, way back in the 70s and 80s, and they get these huge heads. And when you meet somebody that's friendly and approachable all these years later, it just shows you that you don't have to be an idiot. You can be nice to people and still get the respect and that you deserve.
If you had to pick one out of Shepard and Blade.
I would go with Blade because Blade showed me the way.
Okay.
Way back when I was starting out. And it's always fun to see where his career has gone all these years later.
Okay, 2 more. Let's do 2 more. This is fun. I'm trying to get him to pick one of the ones that's in the bag that he hasn't picked yet. If you pick that, let me see, is that the same one? No, pull that away. Okay.
Do that shit.
Okay. You're funny. Okay.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay.
We got Lee.
Well, yeah.
My number one of all time. And Keith Haring.
Your buddy.
Another one of my number ones. Again, Lee, nicest guy in the world, but easily one of the most talented guys that has come along in the history of the culture. I mean, he can do everything. And he's one of these people that, right now is taking his work in a completely different direction. And it's just brilliant to watch him work and sit down and have a conversation. He's just the best.
When you say he can do everything, what do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is he can draw. A lot of graffiti artists focus on the letter form, bubble letters, colors, and all of it. But what people forget is that a lot of us have traditional, skills. We can draw, we can paint, all of these things. And Lee is one of those guys that does it all.
We spoke on Keith. Out of Keith and Lee, obviously you choose.
I would go with Lee because Lee has continued to make work. Obviously, Keith is no longer here. And the thing about Lee that I love so much is that he appreciates the journey like myself. We have worked very hard to get to where we are, but it's not lost on us how important those early years were in our development.
I'm going to do some more here. This is
Wow. I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Plus Say throwing a lot of people to the side.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the one. Oh, really? That's the okay.
You know what? I'm going to just get into it.
Okay. Thank you. You gotta say his
Who
name.
you got?
Banksy.
Okay.
And I have to be careful about this because I don't know Banksy and I appreciate the hustle, but this is, to me, his success is sort of a byproduct of where we are today. And I'm just somebody who likes to shine a light on where we come from. And a lot of these artists that have blown up today, they don't know that they come from us. They don't know that this is the South Bronx that has helped you get to where you're going. And you're standing on the backs of people like Blade and Lee and Keith. All of that success is about turning, like in a different direction and saying, look, if it wasn't for these people, I wouldn't be here right now. But some of these artists don't know that.
What do you think of his art?
It's clever, but it's not my personal thing. And I think that all of the success that he's had is great, but I wish just once in a while some of these artists would just turn around and go, you know what? I came from that. I came from the South Bronx. I came from looking at all of those books on graffiti, and that's what gave us street art. A lot of these street artists are so young, they don't understand that the forefathers and for, mothers are, people of color. They just don't understand that. And I don't, I don't want to get too political because I didn't come here to do that. But when we start talking about the history of graffiti, it's something that is near and dear to my heart the same way hip-hop is. And I love it when people acknowledge the shoulders that they stand on.
Absolutely. We're the same way. Look at that last one right there. You want to do
Oh,
that?
this is Jean-Michel Basquiat.
Yes.
Jean-Michel is the king right now. And I think that it would be interesting to see what he would make of all of this godlike success. Because that's what he always wanted. But sadly, as successful as he was, he never got to see this, which is, Basquiat mania, almost as though he was not a living person. I mean, he's getting the Jimi Hendrix treatment.
Yeah.
And again, put that energy on somebody that's making art today. He doesn't need it.
That's
right?
Yeah. But what made his art unique, in your opinion?
I think that Jean-Michel was a free thinker, and he was very clever, way, way ahead of his time in terms of the circles that we were running in. The stuff that he was addressing in his art was just, I don't even understand why his mind went in that direction. But wonderful guy to hang out with, always a lot of fun, but, he had a dark side.
Say Adams is here, and you said something really interesting I was going to ask you about earlier in the conversation, and this will be my last question. You separated your passion for graffiti from your passion for hip-hop. And many would say, well, isn't graffiti and hip-hop of the same?
Sure.
Okay, so what's
I'm somebody that I hate that people feel like they have to make a distinction.
Okay.
I really do not understand it. I know that, if you break it down, graffiti is a form of art, the same way hip-hop is a form of music. What difference does it make which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's all young people expressing themselves. Stop with all the debates. Let's get down to making stuff that we can hold in our hand. What's the point? What is that argument about? I was listening to, disco when I was working back in the 70s before hip-hop came about. Me too. But so what? Or I was listening to, soul and R&B. So what? Why does it have to be a debate? Everybody gets on their little, hip-hop soapboxes and they want to, fight for their argument about what's more important. What's more important is the art form, is the work. That's what I want to put my energy into, not some timeline about where graffiti sits on the timeline and where hip-hop sits on the timeline and breakdancing. For what?
Okay.